Hello friends, how we doing? I'm Chris THRALL. I'm a former, there we go. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando, which I think our American brothers and sisters would refer to as a Green Beret. And today we're going to be looking at the story of Tumbledown, the Battle of Tumbledown in the Falklands War, and in particular the personal story of Robert Lawrence, who I'm in contact with at the moment, and we're having discussions about Robert coming on the podcast. His story is just, it doesn't get more far out and extreme than this, what this man has been through at such a young age, the horror of war. So let's just get into it, shall we?
Friends, because I think you're going to find this man extremely interesting. He's an ex-British soldier, and 6 years ago, during the final minutes, and I mean the final minutes of the Falklands War, he was shot in the head by a sniper. And he spent 2.5 hours in the freezing cold before being flown in a helicopter with his head stuck out in the open air to a field hospital, where he was left again without any attention, treatment, anesthetic of any kind for another 4 hours, because they reckoned he was not going to live. He was so badly injured, and he wasn't a priority, so they left him on one side and went on with other people that they thought they could save. He lost 45% of his brain with this shot, and it included the motor side for the left side of his body, and he was later told that he would never walk again. Now, he was discharged from the British Army. His own account of his experience during and recovering from the Falklands War deviates, I would say, markedly from the generally accepted view of a sort of a tin pot army up against the might of the British Empire. And what's interesting is how he has been treated by his own government since he came back. He had every right to believe that he would come back a wounded hero, but that is not, alas, how he has been treated.
So I'll just chip in here. So what our host here, is it Gabriel Byrne? I'm not sure, I don't watch a lot of television. But he's basically saying there was this notion that the Argentines were just a ragtag bunch of conscripts that didn't want to be there and that surrendered easily. And as we're about to see, possibly at times that was the case, but a lot of the times there's some fierce fighting. They had special forces, just like the British did. There's also talk of mercenaries that were involved, who were possibly Argentine natives who moved abroad subsequently, trained as soldiers maybe in the US Army, and then felt the need to go back and support their nation. And also our host here hinted at the way soldiers are treated after a conflict, and how massive heroes at the time, and of course when he come back broken and battered, and a lot of times the battering is more can be more in your head than actually in your physical, or both. How you are very misunderstood, and suddenly there's just a number in the military, you are fucked off. Let's continue, shall we?
He's told his own story in a book called When the Fighting is Over, and BBC have made a television documentary about him too. It will be shown later on this month. Would you welcome, please, Robert Lawrence.
Friends, I'm going to flick the board through this because I can't just play it all, obviously. So, this is the Scots Guards, a fiercely proud regiment with a long and proud history. Same regiment that Simon Mann, excuse me, who went on to join the SAS and also became a mercenary in Africa, who's been on the podcast. I'll put a link below. Same regiment Simon Mann was an officer in after he came out of Sandhurst. And this really, I won't say it really captures what it's like to be a teenager, or maybe slightly older than a teenager, climbing this mountain with your SA-80 in your hand, ready to attack a determined enemy. This video isn't going to capture that. It's not going to capture your fear, your homesickness, the weight of the equipment you're carrying, the sheer exhaustion you're experiencing from being weeks and weeks in the field on an active deployment, the treacherous weather in the Falklands, bitterly cold, freezing rain, frost everywhere, soaking wet all day long. The biggest injury in the Falklands wasn't a bombing or a gunshot or a mortar or something like this. It was trench foot. That took most of the men down. They had the old equipment, the molded pattern boots that we have in training, really just not up to the standard. No Gore-Tex, no Vibram sole, no Gore-Tex gaiters. Some of the men took their own walking boots, but once walking boots are wet, they're wet. They're not going to dry out, right? So yeah, on top of that, you've got your enemy on top of that hill, and they're throwing grenades down at you. They're calling in artillery on you. They're calling in airstrikes. They're raining mortars down on you. When you attack a position, you keep going. So the guy on your left might be your best friend. In some cases more, it's actually your brother. I mean, like your family brother, because you joined up together. He gets shot through the head, and he's lying on the ground screaming, or he loses an arm, and it's Chris, help me. You keep going. You gotta leave him to die. You gotta keep going, because you've got to take their position at all costs. So I don't know if this is really gonna capture that, but let's carry on.
One machine gun post.
Obviously, you wouldn't be attacking a position carrying your Bergen. They just get ditched. You might see it again. You might not. Always a good idea to try and take at least your sleeping bag, and these days your Gore-Tex bivy bag, because that's going to keep you alive whenever. You learn that lesson pretty quick when you're in Norway. If you put your Bergen on the transport, you can say goodbye to that for days, certainly hours, possibly even forever. It's the equivalent of putting your suitcase on Ryanair. So I think that's a schmoolie going up, which is a flare. There's various rules that you learn in fieldcraft, what to do when the enemy puts light in the sky, and it depends on what kind of light they're using. But if a schmoolie like this goes up, and it just goes up like a firework on November the 5th. I'm not good at history. What you do is you freeze. You're patrolling along, and you freeze and you don't move. This is everybody. And as it goes up, and then it starts coming down on its parachute, and they light up a square quarter of a mile. They're really powerful. As it starts coming down, you see the shadows moving like this. You sink to the ground, and you just hope that the enemy didn't catch sight of you. Oh, sorry, can't show that. Don't want to show that. Well, don't want to be showing that on certain platforms, let's say, because it's just not allowed. Also, folks, you just have to excuse the background music. I'm not going to explain why, but just it has to be there.
For fuck's sake, get down or you'll be hit!
A bit gory there too, wasn't it? To any of our Argentine brothers and sisters watching, my channel is it's a truth channel. We're for peace. We're for being like adults about things instead of just bombing the shit out of each other so the sociopaths get even richer and richer. So please don't take offense at this. This is not although we're incredibly proud of our armed forces in this country, certainly as a British Royal Marine, I'm incredibly proud of what my colleagues what they went through. I mean, it just was utmost courage. It was nasty down there for a lot of them. But this isn't a judgment call, folks. So there's Robert, very young. I think he's 21. He's leading his troop up the mountain. I think, as we're going to see, you get caught up in the. You just get caught up in the killing. I can't really explain it. You might have heard terms like bloodlust, but it just becomes intoxicating, addictive, hyper adrenaline flowing, and it's almost as though you step into a bizarre but very sick game. So they've taken the mountain. Robert's section is obviously a troop commander, but I think he led a section to take out a machine gun post that was particularly problematic, that was at the end of Tumbledown and was preventing troops from taking the hill. And he got so carried away with it all, he grabbed 2 SLRs and was running up the hill firing from the hip 2 SLRs, which is just, there's nothing, that's like the cowboy films. There's no military strategy where you have 2 rifles. It doesn't make sense. You're not going to hit anything unless it's somebody close up. By this time he's executed quite a lot of those Argentine teenagers, and yeah, he's so caught up with it. He's thinking he's possibly invincible. I don't know. We're going to have to ask him when he comes on the show. Okay, so he's got to the top of the hill. He's in what's the word? You know, he's so caught up in it that, like I said, he thinks he's become invincible. As he raises the weapons, he gets taken out by a sniper that he should have bayoneted on the way up the hill. They refer to it as a sniper in the media, but obviously it wouldn't have been a sniper. It would have just been somebody in a trench, and they've taken Robert out. And this shot of him here, as a civilian, looking at his old regiment, or his regiment, after everything that he's been through, all the recovery, and as the host said at the beginning there, losing 45% of his brain.
While the red bee hums, the silent twilights fall, evil from the grey rock comes.
Is the left arm completely paralyzed, Robert?
Yes, it is. Yes.
And the leg, just a bit?
Toes and ankle have gone totally. Knee and hip are just weak now. But I managed to get them going.
Tell me about the moment when you were hit in the Falklands at Tumbledown.
Well, the battalion had fought the battle of Tumbledown. The majority of the battle was over. It was essential that we took the mountain before daylight because the Argentinian artillery positions in Stanley, if they'd kept us on the mountain during daylight, they could have taken us out and counterattacked, knocking potentially the whole of the British forces back across the island and winning the war. So it was absolutely essential that we won that mountain that night. The battalion was stopped by an extremely heavy machine gun post on the end of Tumbledown Mountain. It had done enormous damage to the company before mine, and my company was called in to try and sort it out. Well, I led the attack on it, and we took it out, and we won that specific point. But I realized that we'd lost all our momentum. You know, we had our first wounded, our first Argentinian prisoners in our hands, and the boys stopped. I mean, we came to a grinding.
So, classic case there of no plan survives first contact. It's a classic military expression. It just means you can plan for the world. When you actually get in there and you're having to lay around down on that mountain and charge up it, you get the unexpected. And everything that you've discussed in your orders group. So you have your orders group, somebody builds a model of the mountain using anything you can, sticks, twigs, mud, ponchos, equipment. You build this model like you would at school. And your commander then with his pointing stick points, right? So A company will be here, B company will be here, C company over here. 2 section will advance up this gully. They will rain down fire on the enemy here, sustain fire to cover for blah, 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 blah. All of that sounds great in theory, but the reality is you get pinned down. You've got a determined enemy with machine guns. What can you do? You're not invincible. You can't just walk through it. Somehow you've got to pick your way up that mountain, picking off the enemy as you go, and you've got to get to that trench. Then you've got to pull the pin on your grenade and in it goes. Then you've got to jump into the trench, execute the wounded as they're lying there screaming, if they're not already dead, obviously. Brutal. It's brutal.
Halt. We then came under severe sniper fire. So I took a couple of my men and we went and took out the snipers. Unfortunately, the last one I didn't see, ran past him, and the one other man with me ran past him as well. He shot us both from behind.
There you go, Robertson actually were snipers. Yes.
That was the last minutes of the war?
An hour and a half before the ceasefire.
And
What a moment, isn't it? An hour and a half later, it would all have been over, and this gentleman would have been up, you know, getting ready to get on a ferry to go home, or a warship to go home, drinking beers. I don't know if he's on the QE2, probably having a sauna, and it all turned out very different. Instead, he's getting Kazabak down the mountain. They actually left Robert for 6 hours on the mountain, freezing cold, with his brain hanging out, because they just thought, well, this guy's not going to live. They then choppered him with his head hanging out the door of the chopper to a hospital ship. Might have even been a land, you know, first aid camp first, and then out to the hospital ship. And then he's got the slow trek back to England as an incredibly injured man.
can you remember what you were thinking a moment before you were shot?
It's very bizarre because, contrary to everything that's happened, it's relevant that I should notice that I wanted to go. I was excited by it. During the battle, I thought to myself, nothing will ever matter anymore. Nothing will ever affect me anymore.
Oh, gotta wait for the background music to catch up.
I thought to myself, this is the most incredible thing. Isn't this fun? And I literally said it to someone soon, just before I was shot.
Isn't this fun?
Yes.
Isn't this fun? This is just a recurring theme when you're in the military. It's that same fun that it was when you were a kid playing soldiers. I remember for I think my 7th birthday, all my friends came over. Back in those days, there was no health and safety, so you just chuck the kids in the car, any which way you can, chucked a few in the boot, and off you went up into the nature. That's what we did then. We used to go out of the house, not just stay in it. And we'd build fires and all this sort of stuff. And we went up to our local river and we just ran along it with our cat guns, just firing and shooting each other. And I always remember that as the best birthday of my life. That playing guns was just the best birthday of my life. So the question we need to answer as a species, I guess, is, you know, not just why these theatres of war are, who benefits from them, but also what is it in man's nature that makes you think that this shit is good.
And had you killed anybody at that stage?
Yes.
You had killed.
A large number.
By shooting or by hand to hand? Did you run a bayonet through something?
I had a very unpleasant experience during which my bayonet snapped whilst attempting to kill a man, and I had to continue, obviously.
And that is when you see the guy's face
And he says, "Please," to you in English.
Yeah, I harp on about this a lot because of all the Call of Duty games and this sort of stuff, and Hollywood's version of warfare, with a very distorted understanding of what war actually is. And what Robert's talking here is actually about taking a life. So he's 21, incredibly young man. He's having to shove a bayonet into someone, let's say his own age, as the guy's looking at him and pleading for him not to kill him. And he's pleading in English, not Spanish. And what Robert's thinking now is, I'm guessing, is like, what if that scenario was reversed? What if it was me on the end of that bayonet? And what if it was me pleading for my life? And there's my parents back in England praying I'm coming home from this war, and I'm not. And they're never going to see me alive again, if they're ever going to see my body again. incidentally, I think I asked, was it Spud Ely? Spud Ely, the former SAS trooper, para turned SAS trooper. What do they do with the bodies in the Falklands? You've got a lot of dead people lying around. And he said the first thing is they just bury them in a mass grave. And then later you look at repatriating them, right?
He said please to you.
Yeah.
After you.
Whilst I was attempting to kill him.
I see. And what did you do?
I had to continue. You know, I learnt my lesson in the end. The man I did pass, not killing, shot me from behind.
Now, when you've talked about the images of war being manipulated.
He said a very important thing there. There was a huge debate after the Falklands, and there was a lot of controversy around the fact that British forces had executed Argentines after they surrendered. And I'm not going to make comment on that because I wasn't there. I don't know, and it's I don't think it's right to. But what I did hear is that when, excuse me a second. Sorry, I'm still a bit hoarse. What I did hear there is that the Argentines would fight to the death, almost, and then as the British troops came up the mountain, they would then surrender when they knew, if I don't surrender now, I'm going to die. Well, what are you going to do when you've just seen all your best friends shot dead by these people, bombed by these people, blown into smithereens by this enemy who you have a bitter hatred for, because that's the indoctrination of being in the forces, and the indoctrination of war is these people are evil. You know, they're born evil. They're not like us. We're on the side of righteousness, you know. And of course, you fought your way up that hill, and the person who's been trying to kill you for the last 18 hours, 36 hours, suddenly in the very last few seconds goes, "Don't shoot." You know, it's hardly surprising, is it, that it's hardly surprising if they did get shot dead at that stage, is what I'm saying. And so what Robert's saying is he's passed somebody, they've gone like this and surrendered, and he's gone, oh, okay. He's continued up the hill because your aim, your mission, your objective at all costs is to take that hill. He's left this guy, and as he's gone past, this is the guy that this has shot him.
Elated. Would you expand on that a little?
Well, I think what scared me most, and I think what is the most relevant point of, if there is one, if you consider there is one, of my whole tale,
Music.
is actually what happened on my return, because wars happen, and we can talk about that, but my experiences of war hopefully will not be experienced by anyone else, or if they do, you know, it's their own experience, you know, it's their own translation of the experience. What concerned me was a number of incidents happened over a period of time when I returned, and I had what I call a cynical awakening. And I realized that what was happening was that they were adapting these images, censoring these images, and being very clever with these images to ensure that the whole international incident portrayed the incident that they wanted. It portrayed victors, not victims. It portrayed a joyous occasion that we should all celebrate and that we should all be very proud of. Now, I happen to believe that we should be proud as a serviceman of having done such a good job. I believe that a lot of the principles and standards that I've been brought up to believe in are still quite correct. What I discovered was that I feel that the rulers weren't believing in those principles and standards themselves. That came out in the version of, for instance, on my return, no press were allowed to be there to meet the wounded, which was step one. I then discovered that a certain number of wounded seemed to have been hand-picked because they had...
Friends, most of you know what's going on here, right? So you've got the whole of the war machine is referred to as the military-industrial complex. Industrial gives you a hint there that of the grand scheme of this this lie, basically, that man has to keep attacking man, and that's the only way forward. The mouthpiece for this military-industrial complex is the mainstream media. Because the same people that own the military-industrial complex, so the bombs, people that make the bombs, the bullets, the guns, the submarines, all of this, the people that have shares invested in certain countries, say the Middle East, the people that own the oil industry, all the same people own the media. So do you see what's happening here? So what Robert's starting to realise is that the mouthpiece of what we thought was the British nation, the BBC, is actually, there's like something wrong there, and this is an organisation that's not in the best interest of the public, because they're not being honest. And we saw this, didn't we? Let's just say around certain events in America 20 years ago, we saw the BBC reading from a script and not being honest. And the sociopaths, as I refer to them, that control this whole game, they don't want you to see broken young men and now women coming back from these conflicts, because it's not the image. They've worked really hard at the PR of making veterans heroes and making war heroic. Why do you think people go, thank you for your service, sir? It's indoctrination. It's indoctrination on a mass scale to believe that being a serviceman alone makes you a hero. And of course, what do the people like Spud Ely, SAS, Bob Shepherd, W01, so Warrant Officer 1, SAS, what do they all say? What do people like myself? I saw people do heroic things. I guess I kind of did one or two things that would be deemed that, as in I was willing to put my life on the line in conflict, but not a hero. Just circumstances in time. Joining the military just doesn't make you a hero. It's just a job. It pays really well, and it's better than working for an employer in Civvy Street who's only going to fire your ass anyway if you're a lost and confused young man like me. And a part of this heroising the military, which came off the back of Vietnam, when people were spitting at the soldiers, calling them baby killers, okay, because everyone was angry at that war. It was ridiculous it went on so much. The people that were suffering were babies and children and women, innocents, villagers, rice farmers in Vietnam getting all kind of hideous chemicals dropped on them. And people realise this is not humanity. This isn't in our nature. Yes, we can fight if we need to fight, but it's got to be absolutely when we are backed into a corner, and it's or to prevent being backed into a corner when it's absolutely necessary. So the BBC there, remember, the mouthpiece for the people that own the whole thing. And I say BBC, I mean all mainstream media. I'm not singling them out, and this is just my opinion, right? They don't want to see broken people at the airports and coming back on the ships. They don't want to see the people in the wheelchairs, the people who've lost their eyes. Imagine, instead of the ships coming back like Canberra and QE2 and Invincible and Hermes, with all the warriors who've made it in one piece. Imagine if instead of that they lined all the children up on the dockside that had lost their parent, lost their daddy in that war. all the little boys crying their eyes out, never going to see their daddy again. Some of them are still in the womb. So you've got mothers there with big tummies. They're crying. These kids are traumatized for life. How do I know? Because they email me. They send me messages on social media. They say, Chris, my dad was a so-and-so, but I never got to meet him, or he left us when he was, you know, I was this age and my brothers and sisters were this age. They don't want you to see this, do they?
What was seen as the right image wound. You know, they had a limp, they had the action man scar, whatever, and they were then photographed. So the wounded
You weren't.
Not the people who were badly burnt or lost limbs, or in my case, had a large hole in my head. And that doesn't seem...
And you were left lying, just to go back to your wound again, you were left lying for 4 hours without treatment. Were you were conscious all of that time?
Fully conscious throughout the time. I think, you know, one has to be careful, because I don't feel that one should look too deeply at the incidents within war. War's an extremely difficult thing to carry out. You have an enemy attempting to ruin everything you do. The reason I was left was a helicopter couldn't get in to get me out. The reason I was left waiting at the refrigeration plant was that there were other people that had to have attention. So, although it's horrific and adds to my experience, it's not the danger. That's not the worry. The worry is this manipulation, this changing of the facts, so that, for instance, at the victory parade, no wounded take part.
Okay, friends, I'm going to cut that there. I think Robert's an incredible man. Really hope he's going to come on the podcast. He's got such a head on his shoulders at such a young age. If you ever get to see the documentary Tumbledown, which is on YouTube, so you can watch it all free of charge, I hugely encourage it. It's very accurate in portraying certainly where my mind was when I was a young man in the military. And in Robert's case, what it's like to come back with such loss, or such loss and injury. Let's just look at some photos, shall we? So yeah, that's the Scots Guards, proud regiment, charging up the mountain. Like Robert said, it all looks so heroic, doesn't it? This doesn't capture the true reality. I mean, there's two Argentine mortally wounded in this picture. Most people in their life never see a dead body, you know, or maybe the extreme of that is like a parent dies or something, and you go and see them in the chapel of the rest, and they've all been decorated with makeup, and I'm not saying that's pleasant. Many of us have done that on more than one occasion, but it's very different to seeing teenagers strung around you in various states of disarray, and that's putting it mildly, isn't it? So what else we got here? It looks like the Argentines fighting back. Some of this artwork's just incredible, isn't it? Seen that one? There we go. I think there's a few possibly Argentine helmets being shown in this this photograph. Let's have a look. Is that one there? Look, that looks like an Argentine helmet, doesn't it? They tended to be a bit deeper. These guys here, they've got Arctic warfare gear on. So this is a windproof smock. This is your, I don't even know the name of it, but this is the hat that you pull the flaps down in case weather comes in. This chap here on the left, Sorry, you probably can't see my cursor, can you? But this chap on the left, you can see he's got Northern Ireland gloves on, so riot gloves. This is they didn't have the proper kit, did they? What else have we got here? Good old SLR. I'm not too good on army regiments. I'm not even that good on the corps if I was honest, but obviously Marines being Navy, so you got this chap here, looks like Black Watch or something, or maybe I'm if you understand this, guys, put it in the comments. Yeah, what else? These look like the Paras, don't they, for some reason? So maybe this is Longdon. This is the book of the TV series. Imagine being a father and your son either doesn't come home or comes home this badly injured. It's just awful. Anyway, friends, let's leave it there. You know, I hope it doesn't offend anyone that I just try and tell it how it is. See, I'm 51 now. I've got friends that are 5 years older than me. So I was 12 when the Falklands kicked off. They would have been 17, and my friend Davey was, I think he was the youngest soldier in the Falklands at 17. I think there were people on the ships. They were allowed to be 17. I think Davey was allowed ashore when he was on his 18th birthday. I might have got all that wrong, but my point is, I know some of these men are still traumatized now by what they went through. There's no, like Robert's saying, there's no aftercare. They'll get you in hospital, push your brain back in and put some stitches in, and then you're sent back into the community. You're no longer part of the regiment that you've sworn allegiance and would have died for. They don't care about you. They're just a regiment or a corps or whatever it is, just a number at Whitehall. They'll disband you next week. Absolutely no problem, right? Look how many illustrious army regiments have found that out, take us. The military industrial complex, it doesn't care about you, right? But what it's very good at doing is tagging your left brain and getting you to believe in an ethos, in a reason. But all of that's kind of horseshit, isn't it? If you've got 55-year-old guys older than me that their lives have been ruined, from teenagers till now, they're still suffering PTSD. Many of this quota, you know what I'm trying to say, this piece of the pie, would have drunk themselves to death or died of drug overdoses. Or of course committed suicide because just can't handle what they've been through. It's too much. There's no support, there's no way out. And when you can't see a way out, well, you see a wrong way out, don't you? For anyone out there who's suffering, have a look below my video. There's numbers you can contact. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Many of us have been in dark places, various different reasons. It's hard to say which places are darker than another, right? But I can tell you, having been in a dark place myself, there's always a way out. But on this podcast, we're just going to be telling the truth, folks, and it's going to upset people. A lot. The military operates on getting ego-driven, left-brain young, predominantly young men to believe in a cause and righteousness, to go off on what they do. And I'm not speaking to people that want to believe in that and think that that's all great. And if you do, I get it, because I used to be there, right? But no, I'm speaking to those people that are suffering. I'm speaking to those children that have lost their mothers or their fathers in war. I'm speaking to people that are just damaged, that were probably, if they're anything like me, damaged before they joined, and then experiences when you serve just compound these challenges that you face in making sense of life. I'm speaking to people that are currently battling addiction, battling alcoholism, and I hope it makes sense, friends. If it does, and if you can support the Patreon, that link there, it's only $1.99 a month. That would really, really help. So if you found this any good, please just don't be an armchair dick. Just get on a Patreon and pay $1.99. Oh, got things popping up. Sounds a bit rude, sir, doesn't it? Right. Massive love to you all. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Hello, friend. I hope this finds you well. My name's Chris THRALL. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando, and I fought my way back from chronic trauma and addiction to live, work and travel in 80 countries across all 7 continents, achieving all of my dreams and goals along the way. Now I pass my simple system on to other people, but I can only help you if you like and subscribe. So please do so, because you get one life, and if you live it right, one is enough.